Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 21 of The Great Pretender. We have 3 episodes left, and everybody's been so secretive on the Discord, and I'm grateful for it. I am very, very, truly grateful, but it's just like the suspense of knowing whether or not a character is trustworthy or not, whether or not we can truly believe in whatever they say. We're left without knowing what's going to happen, because the last several episodes, Oz has supposedly been refreshing Makoto or telling him about Laurent and his past. What we as the audience don't know at this point is what has Oz told Makoto versus what we the audience have seen with Laurent's past. Because the past flashback that we got is very much from Laurent's perspective. It's from his point of view. And so we're not sure what Oz took from that flashback and how maybe he's twisted it or made Makoto think a certain thing about Laurent. We don't know. And maybe Makoto's not going to trust Oz at all. I don't know. And so the fact this show likes to play things close to the vest until it reveals something. And so going into this episode, I have no clue what Makoto is going to take from this flashback. But we, the audience, have taken from the flashback that Laurent very much wants revenge against Lou and Shanghai for killing Dorothy. They had the chance to let her go because she wasn't part of the con. They figured out the con, but they got the money back. They could have let her go, and that could have been the end of it. But the happy ending with Laurent and Dorothy was completely severed. So it's like now Laurent, who has nothing else, now that he's lost Dorothy, is pursuing revenge against Lou and Shanghai and Chen. But Makoto's involvement, has it affected things? Have the plans changed? There's just so much that can happen in an episode of this series that it's hard. I can make theories and then they'll be proven instantly wrong. So I do have a few comments about the voice actors, though, before we start this episode. K.A. was talking about how Emma, who plays Laurent's mother, was voice acted by the same voice actress as Maharu from Seraph of the End, which I thought was pretty cool. And then also she voices Katlia from Violet Evergarden, so that was really neat. And then Kim Suwon is the voiced by voice actress who plays JJ's mother in Yuri on Ice, the voice of JJ's mom, as well as Dorothy's voice actress plays Saiko Tanaka from Haikyuu. The woman that plays Dorothy in this series voices 3 characters in Haikyuu, which is insane to me. She voices Saiko. I didn't realize these were all the same voice actress. Saiko, who's Tanaka's sister. Young Kuro, because usually younger male characters are voiced by women. So Young Kuro and Hinata's mom. So if you can imagine Hinata's mom, Young Kuro, and Saiko Tanaka being voiced by the same woman, that is Dorothy's voice actress. So what the heck, y'all? What the heck? It's absolutely wild. But I have no clue with these last 3 episodes what to expect. But I am very excited. So hopefully my dogs will not be too crazy during this reaction. But I'm excited and I'm very nervous because this series doesn't pull punches. It's shown us in these last 3 episodes. It is not afraid to get dark, to get sad, to get upsetting, and make you uncomfortable. And I don't know where we're going to from here, but I guess we'll find out, right? So we're going to watch The Great Pretender, episode 21, The Wizard of the Far East, part 7. This whole rest of this season is going to be The Wizard of the Far East. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I will give this show credit. It makes you feel so uncomfortable and angry at its main protagonist because there's something about the way they've treated Makoto and all of this. Laurent tries to make an excuse up and Cynthia's like, no, that's just your excuse to make yourself feel better about what you've been doing. And Abby's like, yeah, I'm also kind of seeing the writing on the wall that this may go south for us because of Makoto and us leaving him out in the cold. So Makoto has been like a double-edged sword throughout this entire thing because Makoto is so sincere, and that sincerity makes him very convincing as a con man. It's his honesty and sincerity and how he wears his emotions that make him so convincing because that's authentic emotion. But the problem is is that authentic emotion. If he's not kept in the dark, if he knows the thing, then he may decide that he doesn't want to do the thing and will do his own thing instead, which he's done during the Cassano case. He's shown that he sometimes does his own thing regardless of the plan, and that can be good or bad. And so far in the series, it's worked to their benefit, so they haven't thought about it. But Abby's kind of like, yeah, Makoto has this thing. This could kind of all backfire on us. Are we sure we want him to do this? And yeah, it's a big gamble, but Laurent is so close to getting revenge that, like, he's hallucinating about Dorothy. He's so close to getting revenge that he's wanted for years, that the Dorothy hallucination is there. And maybe she's always been there, and we, the audience, are just now seeing it. And it's like, oh my God, now that we know the backstory with her, it's like, yeah, no. When she appeared above his head, I thought for a second that she was really there. And I was like, are you serious? Did she not die? And then when you realize that it's all been an illusion, you're like, I mean, the lines from the ED, pretend that you're still mine. It's like, yeah, Laurent is stuck in this fantasy of trying to be with something that he's never getting back. Like, even if he takes revenge on Lou and takes down Akemi at the same time, is he really going to feel better about it? There's a lot that went on in this episode, so I want to bring White Coon out and kind of talk through it, but oh my God, we have 2 episodes left. Next week's the penultimate episode, and then we have the final episode. It feels like, because this entire second season has been one big case, it feels like it's gone on for a long time, but it's been this big, giant thing. I didn't expect going into this, the first season, all these ragtag cases, is like, oh, this is fun. And the second half, it's like, it's not fun anymore. It's terrifying, right? Oh my God. There's some themes in this. So we go back to the very beginning of this second act, when we were talking about the plan. And Laurent hadn't told Cynthia or Abby or any of them about Oz or the other stuff until they were about to do the final mission. And he said, I've got this one con that I've been waiting to do, and I want to know if you're in or not. If you want out, now's the time. Kind of like what Dorothy told everybody, right? So we'll put Laurent here, right? That he waited until the last con to tell Abby and Cynthia. And I'm assuming Kim kind of probably already saw it coming, but it kind of like with Makoto, as he suspected, the idea of part 1 of this season was to test Makoto and his abilities. That was like all of part 1. And then we started part 2 with that, which, is kind of sad in a way, because I was shipping Laurent and Makoto, but now I'm like, I'm not so sure, because it's kind of toxic at this point. Laurent is so hung up on Dorothy that even though he may have been flirting with Makoto, does he really like Makoto, or does he just like the idea of what Makoto can do to help him get revenge on Lou and the others? Right? Is that the case? Because yeah, he kind of just was using Makoto to see if he'd be beneficial and to see if he could actually be of use, right? And he talks a little bit more about it later, but we get the idea of Makoto shooting. He shot his dad so that he would appease Akemi and gain her trust, right? So the idea was to have, he knew Makoto would have a visceral reaction to his dad killing them. And so he was banking on the fact that he would shoot Oz to gain Akemi's, Suzuku's trust. He was banking on that. He was expecting it to happen. Everything was going according to plan, right? And then Kim, of course, rescues them. And I like that Abby says she's like, I'm tired of pretending to be dead. Come up with something better. You're running out of ideas. And Laurent's like, oh, come on. This is all part of the plan. It's the best way to work. I like that Kim's like, I'm a senior citizen. I shouldn't have to go like spelunking for corpses. So I guess they put a corpse of, so because Makoto's dad didn't have the weighted vest on to like make him sink, they basically put a dummy in the water to say that it was him in case if they go looking for it. He's like, apologize these two Oz. They've been whining the whole time. He's like, I'm sorry I put you in danger. And Cynthia's like, oh, Oz, this is the fault of that blonde bastard. So yeah, Cynthia's like, you're just a pawn in this too. This is all Laurent's scheme. This is his plan and all this. But is it? I can't trust Oz. Oz is, because there's things that were left unsaid with him, Makoto, that I'm like, why didn't you talk about that? Why didn't you say something? And when we go back to that scene in the apartment, I want to bring it up, but I want to wait till we get there. And he's like, unlike the ones he scouted, he's a good member of the team. That should go for the other one. Like Makoto, Laurent thinks Makoto's a great person because of how honest he is. He's like, I hope it went well. It appears that it did. So Kim says things are a lot different than the original plan. I want to know what the original plan was. Like, what were they originally? I think the original plan was doing the whole princess gig and everything. But I don't know what went wrong because Oz like ratted out Makoto and them to get them to get taken in. So what was the original plan? So apparently the original plan was altered. Okay. And Laurent said we would have to make adjustments as we go. So we don't know what the original plan was, but it's been altered to this one. Now, did Oz tell Makoto the original plan? I don't think so. But that to Laurent doesn't matter. We took it all into account. And you can see the ring still under there. You improvise to get through them. Cynthia's like, you're the one who dragged edamame into this. So yeah, Cynthia feels bad for Makoto. She's like, you drug him into this. Like, you've put him like through the ringer and you realize that, right? Like, why didn't you trust him and explain it all from the start like you did with us? And he's like, before I scouted him, he was a 2-bit swindler. And saying that in front of Oz is kind of like just saying he was full of himself and I put him in his place. Like, saying that in front of Oz is kind of like, how does Oz respond to that? You know, he doesn't say anything, but to Laurent, he basically points out how arrogant Makoto was. He says that Makoto was a 2-bit swindler who was full of himself. But was that really the case? Because he says that, but we as the audience know from the first couple episodes that Makoto was tricked by Kudo in being the scam. Then he went to prison and then he got out and then decided to reform his life. And that's when he met Laurent and got swindled into it. So was he really a 2-bit swindler who was full of himself? Or what? Well, but then he got out of prison and he said, screw it, because his mom had died, right? He wasn't trying to reform. He was going to be a swindler with Kudo. So yeah, so he was. Okay, so yes, he was indeed a 2-bit swindler who's full of himself, but he had the backstory about his mom, and he, kind of like Laurent, when they lost the person they loved, said, screw it. We'll just do what I supposedly I'm only good at. So it's sad that Laurent has all these similarities with Makoto, but it seems like he doesn't realize it. Like, he doesn't realize, like, he's a 2-bit swindler who's full of himself because he lost his mom and gave up everything, kind of like what you're doing now. Like, do you not see how similar you are? Oh. He says, I put him in his place. In fact, he thanks me now. I'm like, I don't think he thanks you now. I don't think that's the case. Like, Laurent says that he's thankful. He said, I shouldn't have to explain to you what's so special about edamame. So that one time that Makoto thanked him, he thinks that justifies it. I'm like, Laurent, he doesn't see how much he's like Makoto. Or maybe he does. At this point, we don't know, because things that we find out about these characters get revealed later. And so Abby's like, you do have a point. If you told him the plan, he'd spill the beans in no time. So Abby thinks that Makoto, the thing about Makoto in all of this, she says that Makoto he's honest and he's true to his own emotions. So she thinks that if he knew the plan and didn't like it, and didn't like a part of it, he would be unpredictable. She's like, as we saw with Cassano, he didn't like the way that the Cassano plan was going, and so he decided to just make a move on his own. To make a move on his own against Cassano when Laurent and Abby didn't know it. So Abby's like, yeah, if Makoto doesn't like what we're telling him to do, there's a very good chance that he's going to take matters into his own hands, and we won't be able to predict what he ends up doing. She's like, that could be a problem to us because this mission is so dangerous, and one misstep will throw the whole thing off. And Laurent says keeping him in the dark and letting him gain Akami's trust was for his safety. And yeah, there is some truth to that, where if he had spilled the beans or if he had made a misstep, he would have been dead. That is true. Keeping him in the dark did somewhat keep him safe. But then as we see, like, keeping him in the dark, like, psychologically just threw him into this pit of despair to the point where he was aiding the organization with human trafficking, not because it was part of the con, but because he just thought that that was all he could do. And I'm like, what? Laurent's not taking his psychological well-being seemingly into account. And he's like, though I hate to admit it. And Cynthia says, you're trying to make it sound reasonable, but it's more of an excuse. Like, you're just trying to make yourself feel better for doing it. And Abby's like, so what do we do now? Even if we let him on the plan, do you think he'd be okay with it? She's like, what if it doesn't work? Now, Oz saying, I'll do my best to explain everything to him. If Laurent knows that Makoto does not like his father, he knew Makoto would shoot his dad. So, is Laurent banking on Makoto not going along with the plan? Is he banking on it? I mean, if Laurent knows at this point that there's a good chance Makoto will not do what he's supposed to and he'll go rogue, is Laurent banking on that? Is he wanting Makoto to go rogue? Is there some element to it that he's going to try to manipulate in his favor, like he's done in the past with Makoto? Because when Oz says he's going to talk to him, I'm like, why doesn't Laurent talk to him? Because Makoto hates his dad. Why would he listen to Oz more than Laurent? But I don't know. And then we go past the intro. And the opening is very telling that it's all of them versus Makoto. It's Abby, Cynthia, Kim, Oz, Laurent, and Kudo against Makoto and the shadows of them. I feel like that's setting up that Makoto is going to betray them because he's like, screw you guys and putting me through this. I could be wrong. So we go back to Lou in the present time where we left off at talking about how important the interpreter is. And we see that happen in the breakdown of their conversation and the when they meet up through Zoom, through FaceTime. And the translators completely botch and alter what's being said because they're both working together on each side, right? So they talk about the importance of the translators, and it just so happens that Oz is gone. Now we know that was intentional, that Oz meeting up with Makoto was intended by Laurent to give him a reason to come back into the fold. I also want to make note that in lots of anime series, like I'm watching Vinland Saga at the same time I'm watching this, the idea of the cross-shaped scar is very common, and it's a very aesthetic design, like for Yakuza or a Viking. So I just think it's interesting that you see so many characters with that same crisscross scar. And then who shows up but Laurent? Laurent is such a good actor, which makes me very nervous about what his character is going to do because he lies so easily to Lou. Like, this is a man he despises. Like, this is a man he's going to kill. And he's just sitting there eating crab with him like it's no big deal. Like, oh, hey, we're besties. Remember that? And lies about his mom, lies about everything. That was such a moment. I was like, oh my God, like he's not afraid to lie so easily to get what he wants. That makes me like worried about what Laurent would be willing to do, right? Like how much can we trust Laurent if he's lying so easily? And so then they set up, like he says all the right words, everything he needs to say to get on Lou and them's good side, to meet up with Suzuki and them, everything, right? So then we go back to Makoto, and I hate him smoking. I absolutely despise it. I hate the fact that he's gone through like 3, 6, 8. He's on his 9th cigarette since the flashback started. I hate it. I like one thing that I have absolutely hated about this arc is Makoto taking up smoking because it's so bad for him, and it's just like shows how like trenched in this toxicity his character is. I can't stand it. I'm like, I want him to stop smoking so badly. But he asks his dad, like he sits there like looking so like just what kills me too is how unaffected he is too. Like Makoto's such an emotional person, but he hates his father so much that he just seems so unaffected, like you think this is gonna make me forgive you. And it kills me. Like it breaks my heart. Like I hate that for Makoto. And he says that's it. And I like that Makoto's in the shadows and Oz is in the light. And I don't know what to do with that. Like Oz has been painted in this flashback and in this scene here. Like Oz has been painted the last several episodes as being better than what we think. But I don't know if that's deceptive, if we're supposed to be thrown off by it. Makoto feels more like a villain during this episode. Makoto feels more like the villain by the end of it. And I'm like, is this show going to make him the villain? Is it going to make him turn villainous? What are we going to do? What? Has he been a secret villain this whole time? He says, you said living like this was too painful. Was that an act too? He says, I don't know. I've forgotten now. That's kind of the thing that he tells Kim, that Oz brings up here, that when you stay in the con too long, you forget what caused you pain, and you forget that you can leave. That's the thing. You don't want to leave anymore because you don't know any other feeling other than being in that world, right? So he's just like, I don't know. And I think he's being honest when he says, I've forgotten what it's like to not be a con person. He's like, I don't know what I was like. The thing that kills me, though, that I get so frustrated with is that you see these two, and I like the visual representation of them on opposite sides of the apartment. I like that. And I think Makoto's serious where he's like, I wish you just died. He's like, I don't want you. He's like, I'll listen to your lame excuse. Out with it. And Oz is like, what do you want me to say? He says, to protect you and Miki from the gang in Shanghai. Is that enough? He's like, it was my only choice. But this is what gets me, right? This is what makes me so frustrated. And I don't know why Oz doesn't say it. Because he went and saw Makoto's mom. So we know he went into the room. Why doesn't he bring that up? And then when Makoto says the stuff about being lawful, contributing to the world, like everything you told me as a kid, why did you tell me that when you were such a liar? What I wanted Oz to say was, because I'm awful and I didn't want you to end up like me. That's what I wanted him to say, but I feel like he didn't say it in this moment because they're trying to get the con. And if he told Makoto, he's like, I told you that as a kid so that you wouldn't end up like me. That Makoto would call off the con and it would ruin everything. That's what I think. That's why I think he didn't do it, which is so frustrating because Makoto needs to hear that from his dad because he just thinks his dad is scum and just lied to him as a kid. And it's like, no, it's like, Makoto, can't you see? He didn't want you to become like him. And you did anyway. And you can't see that that was what he was trying to tell you. The only thing I can think of is the reason why he didn't say it was because he wanted to keep the con going and for Makoto to stay invested. But I'm like, that's so, like, what? That makes me, like, feel bad for Oz in a way. But then I'm like, I also am like, so you have this chance to repair some of your relationship with your son, but you're not doing it because of the con. It's so troubling. It's so troubling because he basically chose the con over them. Yep. And he's like, aren't you ashamed to be lying to your own child? And I wanted him to tell the truth. And the way Makoto stares at him. Oh, it's just like those dead eyes. He's like, don't ever act like my father. I'll never trust you again. And he's like, fine. And I feel like Oz is like, you shouldn't trust me, right? So there's 3 that are in the shadows there. The samurai, there's another, and then there's one that has like a gun or something in the shadows, and then the rest are all in the sunlight. And then Makoto asks, everything Laurent had me do until now was a practice run for this, wasn't it? And he's like, yes. And we see the ring on his finger. He still wears the wedding ring, right? He still wears it. So he clearly loved Makoto's mom. Otherwise, why would he wear the ring? But I feel like there's stuff that Oz isn't telling us. He's keeping something close to the vest and he's not telling Makoto. And I don't know if it's because he wants the con to continue or if he's going to use that information later against Makoto. If Makoto tries to like double cross them, I don't know. The fact this show like hides information from us and what these characters are thinking is so frustrating at times. And Makoto just staring at him with those dead eyes. Oh, it's so sad. I hate it. I hate Makoto. It makes me wonder if they've like just turned Makoto so cold and emotionless that he's going to become a villain. And he's like, fine, I'll do it just like I'm told. And he's like, okay. But then he calls somebody, right? Who does he call? He's been calling someone, so who is it? I don't know if he's calling Akemi. Is he calling Akemi and setting things up? Is he calling Cynthia and Abby and setting things up? Are they all going to betray Laurent and Oz? I don't know. But the scene in the bedroom with Laurent and Dorothy is absolutely terrifying. Like him looking up at her, like she's got such a hold on his heart. And he's like, at least have a drink with me. Oh my God, like so terrifying. So then we go back to the new coffee beans, which I'm wondering if there's anything to the new coffee beans, if there's anything to it. Like, has he been like poisoning Akemi? Is there something going on with it? And she gives him the necktie that was the sun's. Now, something that I'm not sure about is Akemi. We know that Akemi, she views Makoto like a second son. And we find out from the first guy in command that she was the second wife of the Yakuza boss. And usually the second wife is like the mistress or the one that's like the secret wife from the real one. But apparently when he died, because the first wife probably knows nothing about the Yakuza business, she took over in his place, right? Because their son didn't want to. So it's like, okay. So, and then her son ran off. My thing is, are we going to get to know about the son? Is there going to be a connection to the son that ran off? Or are we never going to know about him? Is he going to wind up being important in all of this? I don't know. But Makoto, with this tie, there's a weird part of me that's a little bit afraid that he's going to think that Akemi's feelings towards him are genuine, that she genuinely views him as family when his own father has abandoned him. And my fear is that Makoto is going to choose to help. My fear is that he's going to become a villain, because even though she's showing sympathy and kindness to him, she's still a Yakuza boss that's doing human trafficking. So she's not a nice person, nor is she running like a squeaky clean business. It's literally human trafficking and drugs and everything else for all we know. So my fear is that Makoto is going to try to double cross Laurent and all of them to help Akemi and take over the business for himself. That's my fear. And then the whole series is going to end with him like, it's going to end on a bad note. I have no clue how the series is ending at this point. I was thinking, I don't know why I thought it would be a happy ending. I don't know what a happy ending for this series seems like, but it doesn't seem like that with this. And I'm like, So I just don't get warm fuzzy feelings at all, right? And he takes the tie that, of course, has the cat on it, and they go and set up the meeting at Shanghai. I like that the vase is blocking Lou, and then it starts blocking Laurent instead, right? Now, the question is, what were they doing? Why were they waiting so long? Like, what was the holdup, right? The question is, what was the holdup? What were they planning? And did Makoto tell her everything? Did he tell her the whole thing with the thing and how he wanted her to play along with what he's doing with Laurent and them? How's that working? I don't know, because I don't know if Makoto's been telling her what's been going on. And does Laurent know? Does Laurent suspect, knowing what he knows? There's a question too, if Laurent suspects that Makoto might go against the group and betray them and go with Akemi? Does Laurent suspect that, or is Laurent so drunk on the idea of getting revenge for Dorothy that he doesn't see it? Because Abby suspects it may happen. Abby's like, I could see Makoto kind of double crossing us because he's mad because we used him. Like, you know, I don't know. And I know back then I felt like it was a spoiler because somebody in the YouTube comments was like, well, you'll see later on why I support Abby and Makoto. And I was like, I feel like that was such a spoiler. And now I feel like it's setting up Abby and Makoto. Maybe Makoto has talked to Abby and they're going to double cross everybody and get out of there. And then it'll end up being those two and not him and Laurent. I'm going to be kind of mad if that whole stuff was set up by that comment and y'all spoiled me. I'm going to be kind of mad about that and be like, why did you do that? But I don't know. They were like, I wasn't spoiling, and so who knows? I don't know what Makoto's thinking. I get frustrated. I'm getting like Eren Yeager Attack on Titan vibes with Makoto because I don't know what he's thinking, and I don't know if he's going to be helpful to Laurent and them or if he's not going to be helpful. And part of me is like, I don't blame him if he's not helpful because they've used him this entire time. But then I don't want Abby and Cynthia and Laurent and them to die, so I'm don't know what to think. This show has me like, I don't know what to think. And so they basically do this whole thing where they narrate, and Makoto looking just dead-eyed at Laurent, and Laurent's like Laurent fully expected Makoto to be this way. Like, just what the fudge? Like, just, I ship them so hard, but if all Laurent's doing is just using Makoto and not caring about him, then I'm like, nope, can't do that. And so the two of them, they just act it out. They act out and get it to where it's like $100 billion and then meeting face to face. And they each think something that is wrong about the other. And I love the fact that they were like doing Akemi's makeup in between this, like when they were doing a timeout, she was like getting her makeup touched up. She's like, even though it was on FaceTime, she's like, I gotta look good. You know? I thought that was great. But yeah, they decide they're gonna meet. And of course, Lou trusts Laurent. And Laurent convinces him to make the trade and see them in person. And Makoto does the same. They both get right to the core of what each other wants to hear. 100 billion yen in cash. And so, yeah. And then they set everything up. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Akemi's going to do it because she believes that, you know, she's not going to go back on her word. She doesn't want to look bad in this situation. So, okay, we go past this one hallway for a brief second, and Makoto and the right-hand guy, as they're taking the chair, they're talking about the new paint job. I'm wondering if the people painting on there are all members of Kudo's team, if they're all like doing something to help the con out. Like it seems suspicious to mention this one little thing. This one little detail, and then like we're gonna go back to it, right? I feel like that's suspicious. And then Makoto, he just keeps calling Lou big ears and everything. It's interesting. Now, did Akemi give Makoto the tie just because it was her son's and it's a sign of her loyalty to him? Or is there like a tracking device on it? Is there a microphone hidden within it? We don't know. But then they get the chair, right? Now, the kill switch on the one chair doesn't work. On the one side doesn't work. And I'm like, that gives me vibes like that's going to come out later and be relevant. But I don't know how. However, I think it is very telling. I feel like it's very telling that the left side has the like machete, right? Has the machete on it, and she grabs it and swings it, right? And cuts the tray in half. Or cuts the TV in half. She cut the computer monitor in half. Could you picture his head flying off? Very clearly. You did well. I'm like, she is clearly, I think that's a sign that like no matter how much affection she's shown towards Makoto, she's clearly like ready to murder someone. Like she's not a nice old lady, right? No matter how motherly she seems, she's not a nice old lady. But I think it's fascinating that she has the machete and Lou has the needle. I feel like that's very telling of their personalities. Because Akemi is such a big personality, she's very open with her emotions and she's not afraid to just get in your face and swing a sword and lop off your head. Like she's very big and dramatic. Whereas Lou is very like a snake, like poisonous and quiet and under the radar. Like he's going to secretly kill you and you won't even know it. Like I feel like that's such a good representation of their personalities in that one scene that they're going to prick her and poison her and then not give her the antidote. Okay. And then we cut back to Makoto and the one guy where he's talking about how when they get done with Shanghai, they're going to give the company to Makoto. Shanghai to Makoto for him to take over. So then they talk about how she rises to power, the stuff about her son, and how she's just in such a better place now that she's met Makoto, and she's softened up. I'm like, Makoto, don't fall for it. She's been handling the business all by herself, and she must have been lonely. And he's like, that's her necktie. And then we cut to Laurent, who's fiddling with the ring and asking how the hot spring is with Kudo and them, saying he's going to see them in Tokyo. And then meanwhile in Hakone, they're all getting, everybody's getting ready. Like I swear some of those guys that are sitting there, like at the table, I swear they're some of the painters. So it's all a setup. It's all a big setup. And then Kudo says that if the son's a genius, the father must be a god. And Oz is like, yeah, my son does not think I'm a god at all. And Kim says, no, they're both mortals. Like they both are I like that Kim says they're both mortals. They're both have the ability to make mistakes, which makes me believe that Oz has made mistakes, is making mistakes, will probably make mistakes in the future, but also that Makoto is likely to do the same thing. God, this series makes you so frustrated. And then we get to Cynthia, who has her toxic trait of drinking, like heavy, and Abby's sitting there being like, I don't know. She's like, Makoto is more sensitive than any of us think. She's like, Makoto is not as hard, tough-skinned as we are. He's a pain. And she's like, well, yeah, maybe. And she's like, I never trusted that guy from the start. So the question is that guy that she didn't trust, is it Laurent? Is it Makoto? Or is it Oz? I don't think it's Makoto. I think Abby likes Makoto, and she's very worried because Makoto wears his heart on his sleeve. He's more sensitive, and he's more likely to not take the fact that he's been used this whole time very well. Because he hasn't in the past, right? The question is, does Abby not trust Oz, or does she not trust Laurent, or both? She said that guy. So, I mean, does she not trust Laurent, or does she not trust Oz? And Oz says, the longer you're undercover, the more you lose sight of yourself. And we've seen that. We saw, that was what I wanted him to tell Makoto. It's like Makoto has been undercover in this con for so long, he's losing sight of himself. He's losing sight of how he was at the start of the series, like Oz has lost sight of himself. And what I wanted Oz to tell him was that I lost sight of myself and I didn't want you to be the same way. But he's not saying it. And I'm like, Whoa. He tells Kim that you lose sight of yourself. No matter how horrendous the target, a friendship builds between you. It was a close call for me too. And Kim's like, well, he's matured a lot. And then he's like, but he's an incredible idiot. Yeah, Oz is like, I don't know. He's like, you didn't see the look on his face when he talked to me. Yeah, he's matured. He's like, but what did he say? But what did he say back there? What did he just say? Wait a minute. Because he said, no matter how horrendous the target, a friendship builds between you. So he's like, yeah, he talks about, okay, so he's talking about with Kim, he's like, even though Akemi is a bad person, when you're around them for so long, you start to see it's like Stockholm Syndrome. You start to see the better in them, and a friendship can build between you. Like with Lou and Laurent. With Lou and Laurent, it took Dorothy's death to snap him out of it. And so here he's like, even though Akemi's a terrible person running a human trafficking organization, Makoto's been around her all this time and she's treated him well. So he could have developed this relationship with her. And he says, it was a close call for me too. He's like, yeah, I was the same way. He's like, I was nearly drug in the same way too. So then Kim says, well, your son's matured. He's like, he's matured a lot. He'll be fine. And Oz is like, you didn't see the look on his face when he looked at me. He's like, no. And Abby says he's an incredible idiot. Like he'll completely ignore the plan and do what he pleases. who knows what crap he's going to pull. And then, yeah, he's sitting there loosening the tie and then sees the cats on it and realizes it's the tie that she gave him as a gift, as sentiment. And then decides to take out the phone again and make the phone call to whoever. But we don't know who he's making the phone call to. And then we cut to Laurent, who, meanwhile, is being distracted by Dorothy. Tomorrow is finally the day. Let's enjoy it. Oh, and that look on his face and the reflection in the mirror. Oh. And he's just standing there in the same position as Makoto. You got it. So yeah, you have Laurent, who's being driven to revenge by the ghost of Dorothy, that he can't shake that ghost of the past. And you have Makoto, who can't shake the past with his father and how he acted towards him and his mother. And is potentially I think Abby and Oz are onto the fact that Makoto very well could betray them and help Akemi, because he sees Akemi as a more genuine person to be around than Laurent and Oz and the others. I don't want Makoto to become a villain in all of this and to try to like take over the human trafficking ring. I don't want him to become a villain. And I really think Makoto, I want Oz to tell Makoto all of this that he's telling Kim, because that might stop Makoto from becoming a villain. But I'm like, what? And Laurent's so far in on Dorothy that it's like, what do we do? We have 2 episodes left. So yeah, just 2 episodes left, that's all. No worries. I have no clue what's going to happen, y'all. And I am terrified of these last 2 episodes. Terrified. But what can we do? So I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I'm curious to know your comments down below. Please no spoilers. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back next week with the penultimate episode of The Great Pretender.